Good evening and welcome to episode 42 of the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And man, we're going to talk about property rights tonight and the wrongs. And this one's going to hit near and dear to my heart. And because tonight we're going to talk about see all these letters. I got 19 letters from building services and the health department. And then I got an extra one here from the zoning department, and it seems that they don't really talk to each other. So we're going to do a little show on property rights, and we have all sorts of things to talk about tonight. And we want to, welcome any of our new viewers because we've done a little advertising on WIBC. And if you were actually heard our ad on WIBC, that would have been today or yesterday. We just did. I don't have very much money, so we just did a couple little ads there, 30-second ad. If you did see that, please go ahead and say so in the comments because I'm interested to see how many people actually heard that. I know a couple of people messaged me and they said, "Hey, we heard your ad." So hopefully we'll be able to generate a few more viewers here and get this going. And another new thing we have is I'm actually live streaming to Twitter. Don't even know how that works. So if somebody's on Twitter and sees this and says, "Hey, it's actually live streaming on Twitter," that's great. And then we're also live streamed to YouTube. So hey, look at us go. We are on fire. And I like to joke and say it's the fastest growing show on the internet. And when you meet our panel and our special guest tonight, you will understand why. So without any further delay, I'm going to bring on Elizabeth Colcoyard. I hope I said that right. And we're going to talk about, why she's on our show. So, Elizabeth, how are you this evening?
I'm doing really good. Yeah.
That's good. Now, I think a lot of folks are probably tuning in saying, "Hey, she doesn't look like Donald Rainwater." I said, "Well, she's quite a bit more handsome than him, that's for sure." But he actually took ill today, and Lucy Brenton, she was like on the spot and had you fill in, and you're like right here. And
Yeah.
you have an interesting story, which we'll get into later. But hey, go ahead and tell us about yourself and tell us why you are so interested in property rights.
Oh, sure. Well, it's some big shoes to fill for Don Rainwater. He is like my mentor. I call him my splinter, and I'm his baby Ninja Turtle because I absolutely adore the man. Actually, he is what got me really involved in the Libertarian Party in the first place. His 2020 campaign. I've been a Libertarian for a number of years, but not active within the party. But I am the District 2 rep of the Libertarian Party of Indiana in Northern Indiana. And I've hit the ground running. I'm not much for being a leader so much. I'm good at organizing people, but I don't really like to be in the spotlight or anything. But I just, I fancy myself an activist. If I can do something, if I can create change in our community and at our state, then I should. And I think that we all should. So that's kind of what got me into property rights because I'm not, very knowledgeable about property rights in general. But I was trolling a news station page on Facebook, like a true libertarian does, to hit up the comments and, stir some things up. And I saw a story from Bourbon, Indiana, about a woman named Suzanne Afalabi. And basically, she reached out to the media because she had nowhere else to turn. What happened was back in September, mid-September, or no, I'm sorry, back in March of this last year, or of this year, I mean, she had a house fire and lost the home she'd lived in her entire life. She was born in this house. And so anybody who has had a house fire understands how traumatic and awful it is on a even with people with support and family and community around them, right? And unfortunately, Suzanne didn't receive any support when her house burned down. She didn't, community members, family, friends, nobody really stepped up to help her. She was waiting on her insurance company to assess and pay out so she could rebuild her life. And unfortunately, they were stalling out. And I think that had a lot to do with the pandemic. But at the same time, it got to a point where it was taking way too long. But she had she had her insurance provide her a trailer, which is specifically designed for people going through these types of crises to house them. And she had that placed on her property to live in while waiting for insurance to pay out and to rebuild her home, because that's, I mean, it's her property and it worked best for her and her situation with her animals and her job. And I mean, it's her property. She should be able to do with it as she pleases. But anyway, so one of her neighbors had complained to the zoning board about her having the trailer on her property, and they had told her that it needed to be removed. She has nowhere else to go. She'd be living in her car if she didn't have this trailer on her property. I know we know about the housing situation, and that there's not very many houses available, especially houses that would house pets. And so this was just the best thing for her in her situation. But the zoning board told her that it had to be removed. So then she reached out to WNDU, who came out and did a story, and that's how I picked it up. Contacted Suzanne, and 2 weeks later, we had a rally. And just to rally support within the community, get people there, and to know what is actually happening. And it turned out really great. We did a Sloppy Joe dinner and a t-shirt fundraiser. We got life, liberty, and property rights, and we still have these for sale. So if anybody would love this awesome t-shirt, we do have some available. And so we were able to raise a bit of money for Suzanne, and people started showing up and supporting her. She had gifts dropped off at her house, people reaching out, how can I help? And so we got the community to rally around her. And the day of the rally, well, she'd been talking to her insurance rep, every single day, just wondering what's going on. And so the day before the rally, she reached out to her insurance rep and she said, listen, we have a rally planned. We have a protest plan. These people are going to show up for me at the zoning board meeting, and we will start naming names if you do not act now. And so the night of the rally, she had a check deposited into her account, and the demolition equipment dropped off at her house that afternoon. So we were able to do a couple of the things that we set out to do right away off the bat. And then we had the zoning board meeting. And basically what it came down to is they said that the trailer was not equipped for winter living, that it was a safety and a well-being issue. And so we went to the zoning board meeting with all the answers to their questions, and they acted like they were on our side for the first half until, everybody in the room had been able to speak, and we filled the room. And once everybody was able to speak, then they flipped the switch and, went on the offensive and berated her for contacting the media, contacting the Libertarian Party of Indiana, which she didn't. We contacted her because I was like, we have to do something about this. And basically told her, no, we will not grant the variance for you to keep this on your property. You have 30 days to remove it. So the next step was to hire a lawyer for Suzanne. So the LPIN, in addition to Liberty Memes $5 Charity Club and my friends Spike Cohen and Bootleg Libertarian, Eskimo Libertarian, and Cajun Libertarian, we did a fundraiser, and within 2 days, we had raised the $3,000 retainer fee for the lawyer, which is awesome. And then we kind of got to a standstill because we're like, we could go in front of a judge, the county judge, and he could overrule and grant the variance. Or we could play the waiting game and extend the court date as long as possible until March, when her house is supposed to be built. That's a safer option. So that's what we were trying to do. And just recently, a couple days ago, Suzanne had reached out to me and told me that the zoning board meeting was deemed illegal because they did not have enough zoning board members at the meeting, nor did they have a representative from the county court's office to oversee the meeting. So it was deemed illegal, and now they either have to have another one or drop it entirely. But to continue fighting, now we have to raise another $2,000 for legal fees. So this zoning issue, which shouldn't have been an issue, she had no home to live in. It was not, the trailer was a Four Seasons trailer. There was all of the health and safety issues had been addressed, and they still did this to her. And within the 2 weeks from the rally to the zoning board meeting, several government agencies had been called onto her property, including CPS, to inspect and make sure, and for her safety. And this is just egregious. I mean, anybody who has had to deal with government agencies, especially CPS, knows that it's a scary situation. And this woman has been through.
So let me interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
Interrupt real quick. What was CPS? Was that? Does she have kids or?
Yes.
What was?
She takes care of her grandson. She is also,
Okay.
she's just a very loving woman. It's just her husband and her grandson in this, the trailer right now. But she's adopted her husband's nieces to bring them over from South Africa. And, she's just a very giving, loving woman. And for this to be done on her is just terrible.
Okay, well, that's funny because we had DCS and CPS last week was our show, and then we're just sort of have a theme going here with government agencies, and I do investigate these agencies as we do shows, and I'm just appalled at how they are weaponized and how
they're
they come
weaponized.
against. Your friend is a citizen. The city, the state, the local authority should be there to help her. Not to put things in, not to send 19 letters to somebody that's trying to fix up something and tell them that they're wrong when they're not wrong.
Yeah,
so
especially
we're
in
going
a
to go
small
ahead.
community, like in a small community, a small town, like you expect that, that people will be there for you. Your neighbors will be there for you, and you will be there for your neighbors. I thought that's what small towns living was all about. And unfortunately, that's not the case here.
Well, not the government. The government doesn't think that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the panel on here. I'm going to switch the format up a little bit. So let's see if I can get that together here. Let's add everybody. Here's Ed on. Let's see, Ed. Let's put Ed out here. I'll talk to him real quick. Let's see, Ed. You're not going out there, Ed. Why not? There you are. It's my computer's not working that well. So Ed, how are you tonight? You were taking your kids to the Notre Dame game last time I spoke to you. How'd that go?
That was a blast. We actually won by a lot of points. So yeah, kids had a blast. I just want to say I am thrilled tonight because we have someone from Northern Indiana on the show. Someone when she mentions WNDU, I'm like, oh man, that's right at home. So yes. Welcome, Elizabeth. I am grateful to have you on the show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we're going to bring on Tiffany. Let's put Tiffany out here. Hey, Tiffany, how are you this evening? The internet seems a little wonky tonight, so yeah, that's great. So what have you been up to? I mean, you're in real estate. This is probably going to be a pretty interesting show for you this evening. Property rights.
Yeah, it is, Elizabeth. I enjoyed that story. I'm interested to hear how it plays out. And, it reminds me of when we talked about taxes and how you don't really necessarily own the land. We're always paying taxes. I'm sorry that this lady had to go through this, but a good thing that she reached out to you guys to get some support. Very proud of you guys.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, let's get Lucy on here. Let's see. I could get her to the stream and put her on the spot. Well, hey, Lucy, you're back to the Mafia hit screen back there. The plastic's up and everything. So,
yep. When you don't pay your property taxes, you have to go live in your shed.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hey, thanks for getting Elizabeth on tonight. Short order. So I hope Donald Rainwater's not too bad off. Has he got the COVID, or does he just have a cold?
It's just the crud. Same thing that I've got. I've hacking and coughing up a lung because I ate crappy last week. So remember that your dietary choices, what you put into your body, expresses the health or not. And if you eat a lot of pizza and junk food, you're probably going to be coughing and hacking.
All right. Well, I think the internet must have a little bit of a crud tonight because it's chopping up pretty bad. So hopefully it's not too awful bad tonight, and we can get through this show because we just did some advertising on WIBC. We probably got some new viewers and whatnot. So if you are somebody that heard that ad on the WIBC, put it in the comments. Say I heard it, and see, because as I say, we're the fastest growing show on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and put Elizabeth back on the spot here, and then we can ask questions about her case. And then I think what I want to do then I'm going to go do Mark Small and do small talk because he's going to talk about permits and why we should have them and why we're not. Here's Dorn. Dorn said WIBC waste of money, LOL. I did have a couple friends text me and say, hey, I heard your commercial. So we shall see how that works out. But so let's start with since Northern Indiana people flock together. Let's start with Ed. And Ed, do you have a question or a comment about the story?
My first comment would after the show, I would love to get together with Elizabeth and see. There's certain things as we've talked on the show that we can work together on, and I definitely see this as one of those.
Big time.
Where we're at right now, we're back to raising the funds for the attorney. Is that where we're at?
Yes, we have to raise another $2,000 for attorney fees.
And when's the next step? Like when's that?
So
deadline?
this just occurred day before yesterday. Suzanne got a hold of me and let me know that because the zoning board was illegal, that they have to have another zoning board meeting, which the lawyer has to attend. And so he's requesting another $2,000. So I did have a GoFundMe for her previously. So we'll just do another GoFundMe, and I will push it with all my friends and on all of their platforms and try to get that raised again for her shortly. But
do they actually have a date on the hearing?
I hadn't got a chance to talk to her. I wasn't prepared for the show to follow up, but because she just messaged me 2 days ago, and so I have to follow up and get the details so that way I can pass it on to leadership in the LPIN and to my friends who have podcasts and things like that. So, but within the next few days, we'll have answers for all of that.
Okay.
And
also,
you can go ahead and post in the comments any of the links.
Also, Ed, I do work with a number of county affiliates within our district, and also outside of just a group of volunteers wanting to affect change in our communities. And because we're the party's still kind of small and a lot of the affiliates are new, we've just joined together and formed a coalition called the Cool Kids County Coalition, and we have about 7 different counties represented in that to do good works in our areas. So love for you to participate in that.
I would love to connect after this. So yes, absolutely. Let's do that.
All right. Well, I'm going to put, let's go with Lucy on the next thing here, because I know you're a fellow libertarian and whatnot.
I am.
I know that you're not a big fan of what's going on up there. So what comment or question might you have for Elizabeth?
Well, I guess the first thing is to say thank you for seeing the plight of a fellow citizen and seeing where government was beating up on them, and then rendering aid. And I think that's probably the most important lesson that we can take from that is when you see something that is clear injustice, it takes the village literally. If we have to stand around this woman's property and hold hands and sing Kumbaya to keep the government agents from coming on it, I think that we should. So Elizabeth, have you got anything planned in the future once we raise the $2,000? Are we going to go hold hands and sing Kumbaya and ring our property?
Well, I did tell Suzanne and everybody in the coalition that if I have to chain myself to this trailer to keep it there, that I will. And I will definitely make sure that there's others there to chain ourselves to this trailer to keep her there. But I don't think we will have to do such radical mythology, but it's not off the table. So I would, it just depends on, what's going on with this upcoming zoning board meeting, if there's going to be one, or if they're just going to say, screw it, let her do her thing. She's not hurting nobody. It's her property. So I don't know. I don't expect them to do the right thing, because they won't do the right thing. So I'm sure we'll have more events in the future.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to sit around and think about what can we do to stand up, because it really sucks that it was obviously a fellow, a neighbor that turned her in. It was somebody who doesn't pay her property taxes, who isn't paying her bills, who's decided that they wanted to use the power of the government to beat up on a fellow citizen. And so I don't know if it's possible to find out who these people are, or if that was, kind of like anonymous. But we definitely should bring the power of shame and cancel culture to these people. If it's being used against us, then obviously that's a fair weapon, and those people should be exposed. What is done in darkness should be exposed and brought to the light. So, do we know who's being a jerk to her?
We do, and they were at the zoning board meeting to say their share about it. But I think it's important to try to change things as much as possible within the community and within the power of the community. But we have the resources to take this nationally. We could bring, the nation down on Bourbon, Indiana, if we wanted to. I do have a couple friends that are doing some big things, big activist things, and they would just love to participate in this. So,
and Bourbon, Indiana, what a great name. Come to Indiana, come to Bourbon, Indiana. Yeah, I like that.
I'll bring the bourbon, man. Everybody is there bourbon in Indiana, or in Bourbon, Indiana? And I'm like, I don't know, but I can make that happen.
Do we have a sympathetic, libertarian-minded distiller who perhaps actually sells bourbon, and we could have a fundraiser to buy? I mean, I don't drink or anything, but I'll buy the bourbon that maybe has a picture of this woman's house on it.
Yeah,
wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I love your ideas. Just keep throwing them at me.
Okay, write that one down.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. I know it's Tiffany's turn to do this, and I think this, we're getting to the end of asking the questions here. But why is it so hard for this zoning board? Are they just that arrogant that they just can't say, okay, guess what? We're gonna let you do this? Is it just they dig their heels in and you're messing with our authority and we're going to show you? Is that a little bit what this is? Is this a little small town hero type of stuff?
Yeah, it's all of that. It really is. There's a lot of questionable things going on the local levels, like in these small towns. It's a who's who. It's a buddy system. And you can see it. It's pretty blatant. The people who are on the board, there's a lot of family members and things like that. So it's like, there's a lot of conflict of interest, I think, when it comes down to it. And I think a lot of it is that they don't want to be wrong. They want it their way or the highway. So yeah, it's a lot like that.
Yeah, and that's going to bring us to, I'm going to go ahead and play the Mark Small Talk. And Mark is featured on our show. He does this segment called Small Talk every week. And this is pretty applicable to this conversation we're having. And then we'll carry on the other side of this and talk about, just these things. It's great system until you add people. So let's see what Mark's got to say this week. And honestly, I don't know if there's any cats in the video this week. I'm gonna be a little disappointed, but usually he's got 3 cats and they're all over the place, usually messing up his stuff. So let's take a listen to Mark Small and Small Talk. Well, that's not it. This is, though.
I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk.
That was very
Let's
small.
talk about property rights and zoning and stuff like that. But let's talk about crap. Because if you're going to talk about somebody coming up and writing a zoning violation because you didn't do something specific on your own property, you run straight against the problem of other people's rights and what to do with, ultimately, crap. Because what are you going to do about a zoning violation where somebody doesn't have the right kind of system in for, let's say, either a septic tank or hooking up to the sewer? That's crap. You're talking about crap literally. And that can cause problems. If somebody gets crap into their system, meaning their bodies, they could get a disease or illness. It's how cholera gets spread, for example. So where do you draw the line between that and somebody who will come in and want to make sure that they nip it in the bud, just like Barney Fife always used to do, and would be hyper vigilant about regulations and really infringe upon your freedom. Because you don't crap in your neighbor's yard, you'd expect your neighbor not to do that in yours. And that's really what you're talking about. So in the Constitution, the original text only addressed a couple of things about property rights. One was you couldn't impair the right to contract. And also there was a provision against ex post facto laws. But in 1796, a Supreme Court decision narrowed that. So it didn't really apply to property or civil cases, only to criminal cases. The Fifth Amendment was enacted in the Bill of Rights that has a takings clause. You can't take property without due course of law or due process of law, but that only applied to the federal government. It didn't apply to the states until later. So what does that mean in terms of what you can do? It means that you have certain liberties, but those liberties are constrained when they impact or overlap with your neighbors and your neighbors' rights to exist. It's not that simple. I know that some people would be upset if a city official came onto their property and said, you have to change this and change this now, or you can't tear down, get into John's thing, your mini barn. You've got to get a permit for it. Now, is there a right to do that, to question the government doing it? Sure there is. Is there power or authority on the part of the city or the county to do that? That's why courts are there, to contest it. The better thing that might be is to think about electing to public office people who aren't going to get carried away with ordinances and get carried away with zoning, because there has to be some kind of control on things, or else people won't care so much about their own crap. They'll only care about others. I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. Have a good week.
Yes. So there you go on that. And that's sort of what we have going on here. And I actually have, where's my list? That's what I think that you're experiencing, Elizabeth, is some folks that are, just taking this to an extreme. And, I'm experiencing that with my situation too. These 19 letters are from 1 month. That's not counting all the other letters that I've received from this. And Mark Small makes a good point. Vote them out. So Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the, are you going to do some campaigning against these? I guess these are going to be county commissioners. Is that right?
You're muted.
I think I muted her.
Oh, there I go. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, Bourbon doesn't receive any campaign resources from any party. It's pretty left alone, and I think that's going to change. I do want to say Marshall County, the Libertarian Party of Marshall County, just affiliated this year, and that is their region, their county. And so, we've got big plans in store.
So one more follow-up before I turn you loose on the panel. So Tiffany, get ready. You're at bat. Do you have candidates? Do you have candidates, somebody that's willing to step up and do this? Because, hey, we got to have somebody operate this stuff. And, obviously it sounds like you can get anybody that's going to be better at this. At least they're going to have compassion for their fellow citizens and be able to help them out when their house burns down instead of pile on. So do you have some folks lined up?
Do I have some folks lined up?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It's too soon to say that if I do or not. I kind of like to keep this stuff close. I mean, if it's, if this place doesn't receive any sort of attention, I'd like to keep it that way. There is one position that I'm really interested in, though, the court rep that is supposed to be at these zoning board meetings to oversee. I would love to put a libertarian in that position. Oversight is something that libertarians do very well. And so even if we couldn't get on the board, that's an appointed position. And if it's not filled, I will find somebody. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Tiffany, you've been listening intently here on this, and I want to go ahead and give you something about the survey online. So, People Over Politics is a group on Facebook. You can join it, and we do surveys on there. And this was a survey about permits. Should you be required to get a permit on your own property as long as it fits the zoning parameters? The choices were no. There was 33 people said no, you shouldn't have to get a permit. And 11 people said only if you're John Schmitz, which is me. And then 3 said yes, and 1 said not sure. So I actually got 11 votes that I should be the only person to have to get a permit to work on my own house. And that's sort of a lot of people like to joke around about it, and it is sort of comical. I actually have a video of 2 inspectors, one at my house busting my chops about it, and one at the corner waiting for him to leave so he could come bust my chops about something else. So yeah, I've had my fun with the permit people. So zoning question, anything you have there, Tiffany, comments or questions or whatever pertaining to the situation up north or just zoning in general?
So Elizabeth, I had a quick question for you. Can you tell us just a little bit about the demographics of the neighborhood she was living in?
Well, actually, she doesn't live really within the town. She lives 2 miles outside of town in a very rural area, and she is surrounded on 3 sides by fields. But she is just within zoning limits. I mean, she's not in town, not in the slightest. But it's a very rural area, very conservative area.
Damn, I was afraid of that. Wow. That's really unfortunate. I'm really sad about that. I spent some time at our local city council meetings, and we've got zoning and variances and stuff like that, and just a more congested area. It's a city. So a lot of things make sense. And, I'm terribly rule bound. I don't know if it's because of just my personality in general or having been in the military, but, when it comes to permits and laws and following what's going on, I'm very, very rule bound. If I were going to get something done at my house and if I needed to have a permit, I would get a permit. That's just me. Because I just sometimes feel like, when rules are enforced, they're not always enforced equally across all demographics. So that's kind of my way of protecting myself by being very rule bound. And
Yeah.
John, just going back to you, what did you do?
Oh, what?
I don't think
missed
John
that
did
question
anything.
or something. Skipped.
Okay.
John, what did you do? Who did you
Yeah, I
piss
don't-
off? What did you do to start all
Are you
this?
talking
When
about
did all
me?
this start? Yeah, when did all this start?
Oh boy. Okay. I'm going to try to make this as fast as possible. So it started when we moved in the Mars Hill area. In 2015, I bought a building that was 2 drug dealers and sex trafficking that had been sitting vacant for 3 years. I buy it at a bank foreclosure. As soon as I buy it, the health department comes out and cites me for 10 violations on this place, stemming from peeling paint to roof leaks to windows that were bad. There was 10 different items on there. I go to start working on said items, and guess who comes along? The code enforcement comes along and red tags me. So then I have to get a permit. So then a year and a half later and $15,000 later, I get to start working on my own property down here. And they added no value to my property. So that was in 2015-16. I'm thinking, well, maybe things have changed. So we end up moving to Mars Hill, and I bought a house that had heroin squatters in it for 2 or 3 years from I think a tax sale or something like that. And by gosh, the same stuff starts happening. And, and I joke around with people. I say, our theme is it's got to be some kind of illegal activity before we want to buy it. And so I start working on this house. I get my permits. I get the inspector that would come out, and he would sit in my driveway for 4 hours and go in and out of my house until he found something wrong to cite me for. And then he'd take 2 weeks getting back to re-inspecting it. And he said, I can take as long as I want. And it just got to the point where it was it was just unbearable. And so I added 5 feet onto my front porch that wasn't in my original plan. And I know this is like a super long story and I'm really condensing. And so they were going to make me get a whole nother permit, drainage, zoning, and everything just to add 5 feet on. So I said, hey, wait a second. This is a handicap ramp. It's exempt from getting this other permit. And this is where, Elizabeth, you'd appreciate this. This guy was going to have none of it. I'm the big guy. I'm the sheriff of town. I'm going to show you. So they send out the zoning department and write me up for not having a permit. But I have a permit to build my house. And then they complained about construction materials being in my yard for my house. And so I confronted this zoning person, put him on Facebook Live. 2 days later, I call them to try to find out what's up with this. And they sent me this letter and all that. And she quits. Nobody's following up with her stuff. Nobody's talking to building services. Nobody's talking to the health department. It's just on and on and on of the calamity of error that they've done here. And I'm just doing a simple room addition. So that's, my dog that's in this hunt for this program. And that's why, and hey, Tiffany, I'm all for following the rules. I've been building stuff for 30 years. I've actually started a sewer utility from scratch. I've built a subdivision. I've signed a contract to build a $2 million building for somebody. It's not like I'm a hack, but I know there is people out there that are hacks, that maybe they shouldn't be doing their own wiring. And I don't do my own wiring. I hire all that stuff out. So to me, it's like, what I did wrong, Tiffany, was I tried to come in a neighborhood that's underserved and try to do something better. I've invested over $500,000 in Mars Hill. And you'd think the city would say, how can we help you? Not how can we stop you? So
No,
that's my rant. And that's what it is.
Yeah, they see how much money you've invested and they know. Yeah, they know that you have the money to, I was just saying they've seen all that money you've invested and they know that you have the money to, pay this fine and get you for that fine and whatever they can do to get more money from you because they know you can pay.
I'd like to point a couple of things out from this. So, John, think about this. When the city had it, when it was a bank foreclosure and the bank had it, they wouldn't dare put all of those fines against the bank because, they're depending upon the bank for bonds and favors. And, of course, they get their sweet little side deals and loans and things that we just don't get as average citizens. And so they certainly were not going to make those people mad. But I really want to comment on what Mark Small was talking about because he was talking almost about the necessity of deciding what your neighbor does with their property. And he was using some examples where, your actions might harm another. So what I'd like to go back to is the idea of strict trespass laws, because people say, well, in a libertarian world, how would you prevent, oil spills or how would you deal with them afterwards? And if your neighbor builds a septic that is illegal or in some way is not adequate to contain the sewage and it harms your property, maybe it kills your goats, what do you do? And the answer to all of these things is actually strict trespass laws. People should be held accountable for the harm that they cause others, and restitution should be ordered. So I'll just give you an example. Years ago, 30 years ago, I worked at the Belmont wastewater treatment plant on the south side of Indianapolis. And while there, I was horrified to learn that Riley Chemical would daily dump all kinds of chemicals into the municipal water supply. So it was up to us at the Belmont wastewater treatment plant to make sure that that water was safe for people to drink. And it literally cost about $100,000 every time that they dumped, which was multiple times per week, in order for us to make that safe for citizens. And our enforcement arm, the guys that went around and monitored this, were really frustrated because when they wrote a citation, the maximum citation was $25,000, and yet it cost us $100 as citizens. And so those were our tax dollars that were actually making up the difference so that we wouldn't die when we drank the water as a result of Riley Chemical. So what happened is instead of a free market solution, which is if you harm somebody, if you put that into the city water supply, you would then, first of all, be charged with making it right and cleaning it up. And then there could be a fine on top of that to discourage further behavior. Instead, it was actually memorialized by the law that Riley Chemical now could, spend $25,000 for $100 worth of abatement. So it was like buying a discount coupon for them. And so I think what it all boils down to is if you're not held accountable for your actions, whether they be government or private citizens, there's a problem. If we were held accountable for those actions, Aaron Brockovich wouldn't be famous, right? Because they wouldn't have been able to get away with what they got away with. And I think are we all stuttering now? Yeah. The internet tonight, man.
Yeah,
Right.
it is not liking us tonight. It's like, that's what I get for advertising the show. It's my fault.
Comcast Cable heard you, and they were afraid.
It's like the internet's full of turkey.
Yes.
Yeah, it needs to go on that diet. Well, and that is a good point. And that's going to bring me to another infringement of property owner rights here. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to play Laura Guy she's a property rights advocate, and her latest thing is the eviction moratorium. So let's see what she has to say. And then on the other side, we'll get everyone's comments on that. So let's see what Laura's got to say.
Hi, my name is Laura Guy. I am the president of Indiana Property Rights Alliance. Our mission is to protect property rights on both the federal and state side, in both constitutions. I think the last 2 years have really shown us just how threatened our individual property rights are. Obviously, the biggest issue has been the eviction moratorium.
The format up a little bit.
And what
So
this,
let's
what
see
this
if I can
did
get that together
was,
here. Let's
it
add everybody
basically
here's
said
Ed on. Let's
that
see.
we are
Ed,
no
let's
longer, we
put
are
Ed
not
on
going to
here. I'll
honor
talk to
your
him real
valid
quick.
legal contract. So this should really alert every business owner and anybody that has a contract. But what's especially egregious about this is that it said that one side had to honor their terms of the contract and the other did not. So landlords, who we prefer to call housing providers, they still had to provide regular maintenance. They had to pay utilities if that was a part of their contract. If there was a sewer line that went out, we still had to replace it. If a furnace went out, we still had to replace it with the possibility of having no income coming in. But tenants were allowed to say, I've been affected by the moratorium, so I don't have to pay you. So it's a threat on our property rights, but for any business anywhere. I think the best quote that I heard about the eviction moratorium was, the moratorium was creating countless real problems while responding to only imaginary ones.
All right. I knew you'd be shaking your head yes on that one, Lucy, because that's sort of what we have here. And it looks like we've lost Tiffany. The internet hates us tonight, and I just had some kind of feedback going on there. So maybe that's going to make things a little better. So, the eviction moratorium, what gives the government the right to tell you what to do with your property without paying for the consequences? And Lucy, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I'm an old landlord and got rid of my properties before COVID. So I am really, really happy that I didn't own any rental properties during COVID. What's really frustrating is that the government always makes up rules, rules for thee and not for me. And so government literally interfered in that private contract that a landlord had with their tenant. And because of the power of government, you see, government has a monopoly on force. They have a monopoly on violence. I can't go enforce that contract with my tenant with a gun, but the government can use their guns to stop me from enforcing my contract with my tenant. And they've got various ways of coercion and persuasion and extortion in order to do that, including, if I'd had property and had tried to fight against the government, maybe I would have had all those kinds of letters show up at my door that you did. Or maybe they would try and take my property for some other reason. So what we have to remember is that government is a gang writ large. That's a pretty famous quote. And it really is true. There is very little difference between the mafia and the government, except for the mafia doesn't pretend that that they have an authority. So just remember that anything that the government does is, okay, so let me put it a different way. You cannot give somebody else a right that you do not have. So if I'm sitting in my house and I want to go over to your house, John, and take money out of your wallet, it would be wrong to do so. Taking money out of your wallet is wrong. That's theft. But if everybody in the neighborhood got together and decided to take money out of your wallet, we would be the government, and suddenly it's somehow moral for us to steal from you. So the government never had the power to interfere in those contracts, not legally and not constitutionally, but yet it did. So I think it really starts to inform us of what are we going to do about it going forward? How do we hold these people accountable? This is the conundrum that I find myself in, is how do we hold government officials accountable in their personal capacity? Another place where government interferes with private contracts is with the COVID vaccine and other vaccines. See, government passed a law in 1986 that says that you can't sue vaccine manufacturers for the harm that their products caused. And there's actually a separate law that covers the COVID vaccine because it's an emergency use authorization. So now where you would have a normal market force of, if I buy a product, there's a liability there. They're putting a product out for profit. I'm using a product expecting utility, but I'm harmed instead. I would normally have the right to sue them, just like with Vioxx or Lipitor or any of those drugs. But with this particular class of drugs, this particular thing, you cannot sue them. So again, government has interfered with the private contracts by giving them a pass. And that creates not only a moral hazard, but a real physical hazard in this world. So anyway, thanks for letting me rant. It's just going down to be, how do we start holding these government officials accountable? And I don't believe that voting harder is the answer.
Yeah, voting harder. Yeah, that's, I really
Vote
pushed
harder.
that button hard. Yeah, but well, and one of the things is, so if you sue, I'll tell you what would make a big difference. If these people that were in the government, if they could be sued personally, that would get interesting quickly. Because right now, if you sue the government, as Elizabeth talked about earlier, they don't care. It's not their money. They got an attorney that comes and supports them, or that
Qualified
takes care
immunity.
of these things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Qualified immunity. Yeah.
So, but us as citizens have to spend $3,000, another $2,000 because some hard-headed zoning people can't make the thing work for a citizen. That's what drives me crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and play the second half of this clip from Laura Guy. And on the other side, I want to talk about why possibly we don't have low, affordable housing and, people that want to get in the game. So real quick, anybody else been a rent had I used to have 12 units in Indianapolis back in the day. I sold my last one in 95. So I was glad that I did that. Ed, have you ever had any rental properties?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You have. So do you
Yes.
still have any?
I manage them now. I don't have any.
Okay,
I don't
you don't have any
personally own any.
personally. And
No.
then we lost Tiffany. We'll ask Tiffany. Tiffany, have you had any rental properties in the past?
No, but it's funny. There's a brand new listing in Mars Hill. It's a $50,000 house, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Got my eye on it, but I don't know if I want to have anything down that way.
Oh, well, hey, tell me where I am me. I'll see. I'll do the eyes and ears for you on it and see. You can move down here and, I joke around about, hey, you can buy a house in Mars Hill for a car payment and $50,000. Hey, I know that's a cheap car. That's not even a, expensive car
It's not
these days. So
Not even a
I mean,
Tesla, right?
yeah, no. I mean, it's like, come on, let's go. So let's go ahead and listen to Laura here. And on the other side, we'll talk about affordable housing and why we maybe have a scarcity of landlords. So here you go.
Laws going on in other states. For instance, in certain parts, mostly on the West Coast and East Coast, where housing providers are either prevented completely or limited to checking criminal background history, eviction history, credit scores, because they call that racist. So we're prevented from making sure that we're putting somebody that is capable of, making the payments, and a good upstanding citizen in our own communities. So, a lot of those things are scary and threatening to our business and our ability to operate our business as we know to be fit. We are the people that are in the business. Any government housing that people have seen, you've seen, they're not handled well or managed well. So at the moment, Indiana Property Rights Alliance biggest issue is fighting the eviction moratorium. Well, while it has been lifted, it has only been lifted based on the CDC didn't have the right to enact that. However, your local governor could do it, your local legislator could do it. The U.S. Congress could pass legislation that said that they could enforce another moratorium. For example, in the state of New York right now, there's still an eviction moratorium going on because their local government enforced it and passed a law to have that done. So we just want to make sure that in Indiana that we retain our individual property rights. And that is good for both the housing provider and the tenant. It keeps costs low. It keeps quality high and rents low to have a local housing provider that is invested in your community. So our course of action is, at the moment, is we are filing a lawsuit against the state of Indiana to pursue damages for those housing providers that were sustained business losses because of the eviction moratorium. In a time when, all kinds of businesses were getting PPP loans, people were getting, if you couldn't work, you were getting unemployment, and even tenants, they were given an opportunity to apply for a rental assistance fund. To date, there has been no such remedy made available for housing providers. So that is what we are pursuing at the moment. And that's our overall mission and goals. I really appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to tell us a little bit about us. And I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, here's another lawsuit. What the heck? I mean, it's very hard to sue these government officials because they just don't care. It's just another thing. Oh, well, we got lawyers to take care of it. So, and I know Lucy joked about voting harder, but man, I'll tell you what, the government needs to get out of our business in some ways here. And, so Elizabeth, what do you think about the the government not helping out these folks with their rental situation? If somebody's not paying, why didn't they get bailed out? Everybody else seemed to get bailed out. If they got deep pockets.
Yeah, they just don't care much about the little person or worried about how they are going to make ends meet or continue, owning these properties without any income coming in. They don't care. And I mean, how are these landlords going to pay their property taxes that, the government still expects to get if they're not getting income from these houses? They might possibly lose their properties because of not being able to pay their taxes on it. Who knows? But I didn't get to watch the video because it lagged really bad for me. But I do think that we need more affordable housing. And that's a big situation here in Indiana right now. So.
Can I talk about affordable housing and why we don't have it?
Yeah.
The reason that we don't have it is because we don't have certainty in the law. We don't have certainty as investors that the money that we've saved our whole life for, and then the risk that you take on by going out and get a mortgage, and the liability of what if, one of your tenants' friends comes over for Thanksgiving and slips and falls and, breaks an ankle. We don't have certainty that the capital and the hard work that we've saved for is going to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have certainty that if the people harm our property, that we can collect from them. And so without that certainty, there's no reason to invest.
Yeah. And I'm going to add to that, if I can get on here, I'm going to add to that and say, the cost of unboarding a house. So we have a lot of vacant houses, and Ed, I'm going to give you a chance here because we had our lovely mayor here had a 2,000 house abandoned house program here. And I know that your mayor had 1,000 house thing. And I think the other people know that. It must have been a Democrat mayor thing going around that they were going to fix up these houses or do things with these houses. But as soon as you unboard that house, here comes the building permit people and they want their handout. Now here in Mars Hill, you just heard Tiffany talk about a $50,000 house. So how much does it cost to build a house in Carmel? Or how much does a house go for in Carmel? Is it 50,000? No, it's a lot more than that. So, but it's the same to get a permit to work on that house as it is to here. So really, it just adds so much expense to something. It's better off to leave that thing boarded up. And then on the other end, somebody's got to pay for those fees. And generally it's a renter or somebody like that. Or if they raise your property taxes, guess who pays for that? Hey, that person is not going to, not going to fork that out. So Lucy, you hit it right on the head with consistency. So Ed, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You could talk about your program up there, the 1,000 houses in 1,000 days. I know we were trying to get a guest on to talk about that, but never materialized. But give us fill us in on how that program worked.
So one of the biggest problems was it was sold as a way to get rid of blight in the city and abandoned homes. They did it with using code enforcement, going out and leveling fines on these homes, and doing it in a really harsh way. I mean, they really pumped up the prices on these fines that they were leveling on people's homes. And so if you had say you had a $500 repair, a tree had fallen on your roof and you had the corner damaged, you may get $1,000 fine. Well, rather than, helping this person that already doesn't have the money. I mean, we're not talking about houses in the 200,000 range where some of these houses were not worth more than $25,000, $30,000. And so rather than trying to help these people out, they levied these harsh fines on them. And when these people couldn't pay the fines, they took their homes and basically leveled them. And the harsh reality is, not only did the people get, if you're a homeowner and your home got leveled, now you got left, the city send you the bill for everything, the legal process, for the demolition of the home, for all of this, and you were left with absolutely nothing. And so one of these, I am one of those people that said, hey, like, I do believe that permits need to be, people do need to seek permits, because I've done enough work and rehab work where I've gone into homes where people have just handyman themselves, and people end up purchasing homes that are really unsafe. I have seen some really scary situations before. I've seen rooms, additions built that didn't have 2x4 framing for, any type of studs. And it'd be a long story to explain how that worked, but when you see it, it's frightening that somebody bought this and it was someone with kids moved their kids in, and I was like, good God, you do not let your kids come in here. And so I do think there is a purpose, but I think the broader issue, and this goes back to Elizabeth, and I think it covers all of this. I think we have these one size fits all, these people that get elected, and they have this idea that just this blanket thing works for everybody, and they have these ideas, and no, it is a nightmare. We have to have some type of flexibility. You have to be responsive to the person, the situation, what's going on. Even being someone who believes, that we do need permits, I also understand, I've been on the other side too, where it's just gone way out of control. John, I've seen situations like yours before. And again, I've seen that, the friends of the city, the friends of the elected people, they never seem to have these issues. And so I think it is a significant problem. I'm out of, I mentioned on my personal Facebook page, I am leaving the industry altogether as of next Monday. I am done with rental properties. It has been a nightmare for me, and I am so thrilled to be leaving. And again, when we talk about low income housing, I've worked here in South Bend with some groups trying to raise funds to do low income housing. The problem is you get into cities that the reason why these tiny homes are built on trailers that move, not because these people want to move them around, because most cities won't permit a $20,000 home because that doesn't add to their tax base. They want the larger homes. And so when you talk about affordable housing, you also have to talk about that aspect too, of if you're going to have affordable housing, you need to be able to make affordable houses. And if you can't, City of South Bend did a study, and basically their target market for their low end of the houses was making $52,000 a year. If you were under $52,000 a year, you weren't even in their sights. And so, again, I think it needs to be flexible and responsive. And I don't think we've talked. Bourbon's not a Democratic area. It's this is just government in general. We need to have a more flexible, responsive government to answer the people's needs.
Yeah, Ed, that was very good. And you talked about friends of the city. So I got a little story for you that you're probably going to feel, you're going to be shocked about. Okay. So Harding Paving is a big paving company here. I used to watch Fred and Ron Harding back in the 80s when I worked for Skinner and Broadbent. They'd come out to our strip centers and they'd say, yeah, I'm going to give you 4 inches of asphalt. And man, we had to watch those asphalt pavers like a hawk because they're real honest guys, So they bought a 5-acre tract down here, just about less than a mile from my house. And you know what? They didn't get one permit. They built 3 buildings on there. Well, I take that back. They got a state permit to get us cut from Kentucky Avenue from the other thing. They got no drainage permit. They got 5 acres of parking lot now. No drainage permit, no building permit, no anything. And that just happened 3 years ago. So I'm just not, I think the city hates me. Is that what the moral of the story is here? But so what, how do we get around this? I mean, how do we get people aware of what is happening? And, our survey said about half the people get building permits or have had to get one. And none of the comments were, hey, that was a fun experience. So how can we streamline this stuff and still make our communities safe? And I get what you're saying, Ed. We don't want some of these people, this house, before I remodeled it, there was some wonky stuff that was done to this house that had been added on, and they never got a permit. It was moldy, nasty stuff. It had to be torn down. So I get it. So what's the happy median? I mean, does anyone want to jump in here and talk about that?
I'll jump in with an idea that's, and we've had a lot of talk in the last couple of years about police review boards and giving, citizens the ability to review incidents with the police department. I think that it's very logical to have a citizen review board when it comes to dealing with city and county, like what you're doing, having that review board that represents the people, that you can take that to arbitration, that you can go back and talk about what's going on. And so I think that would be one step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment. You talked about it's cheaper and and I know that things can be issues, but one of the things that people may not know is that a lot of cities have these homes that they're selling for pennies on the dollar. You can go out there downtown for $15,000. When the city sells these homes at these deep discounts because of the blight situation, these homes get snatched up by out of town investors who will invest in the homes, maybe flip them or turn them into rental. But it's the exact opposite of what we want in our communities. We don't want out of town investors, out of state investors owning these homes and making them rental properties. Number one, not responsive to the needs of their tenants. And number two, if they choose to flip these homes, they can mess up the property values, mess up the tax base. And a lot of times in these areas, these are, like economically depressed areas, and it just messes up the whole situation and can squeeze out the little guy. I think that for people who do have money and interest, I think we need to see more real estate investing teams getting together with friends to purchase properties, rehab them in the community, keep the ownership local. I think that there's an opportunity for just a lot of community beautification, especially on the east side of Indianapolis, where you do have some older communities, communities of color, where people are homeowners and they are in need of home repairs. I really think that we need to put our people, help them do the things that need to be done so that they can stay in their homes. One of the things that's so important in so many communities is home ownership. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a house in Carmel. Simply own where you afford to own is the first step toward building wealth. Also stability for your family and stability for a community. So anything that you can do, that we can do to keep homes owner occupied or locally is going to be super important. I'm glad that we're over. I think when you invest in homes and put them on the market for renting, I think they deserve compensation. They deserve consideration because they could easily sell these homes, flip them. People who rent would never be able to afford.
Okay,
So
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I've got a whole topic for another show, which is BlackRock and venture capitalists coming in and where they actually get their money from directly from the Federal Reserve and how they're stripping home ownership in order to destabilize the whole country. But what I really wanted to talk about, so let's do a whole show on that. What I really wanted to talk about is to kind of come off of what Ed was talking about. What are the real solutions and how do we hold people accountable? Well, I would say two things. First is bonds. And then the second is private building standards. Let me give you an example. So if a public official has to post a bond and then they are sued and that bond is actually collected on, bond companies will then rate you higher, which means it's more expensive for you to continue being a public official if you have not discharged the duties faithfully or if you have abrogated somebody's civil or constitutional rights. So somebody like Nancy Pelosi might need to post $1 billion bond because she hurt so many darn people. And then she would not be able to continue in office if she could not find the company that would bond her. Now, she could probably find companies to bond her because she's got all kinds of graft and things. But think about your local police chief. What if he had to post a $2 million bond and that any citizen whose civil or constitutional rights had been abrogated could sue the bond? And if they collected, then that police chief would not be able to continue being a police chief unless he could then find another bond that he could pay for. And I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility. The second thing is, I've been in a lot of houses that have had permits pulled and they still were terrible and falling down. So clearly that's not always the answer. When you look at the food supply, we have this, non-GMO, like the little butterfly with a check mark where you can actually submit your food to be tested to make sure that the analysis shows there's no GMOs in it. What if we had the same thing for building standards? We have the Underwriters Laboratory, right, for electronics and things. Wouldn't it be more effective to have a company come through and instead of paying permit fees, you pay, I don't know what you want to call it, but you'd pay some sort of fee to certify the fact that your building was done correctly and to say, hey, it really does have 16-inch walls on center and to be there every step of the way. And then if you as a homeowner found out that that was not true, that you had been defrauded, then the company that had certified and signed off on it would be the one that you would sue. Maybe right along with the builder. There are private solutions to all of this.
What housing inspectors do? Why bring them into the process? I'm sure that housing inspector, they're pretty busy season, but maybe make that another part of their license. Just going out to investigate and things that are added on and work that's been done. You already do that.
Well, the thing that I'm trying to do at every single step of the way is to take government out of it, because government officials have graft, right? They can sell fraud. That's why very few libertarians get elected, is because we will not be available for you to, have us sell you fraud later, right? That's why I didn't get hundreds of thousands of dollars in my Senate campaigns like my competitors did, because they knew that, hey, Pfizer, you're going to get my yes vote on the COVID vaccine. If you just, they're not voting for Lucy because of that. So if the building inspectors are elected officials or if they work for the city, you got two problems. The first problem is that those people are taxpayer funded. So in order for those people to have a job, you have to steal from people that have no dog in that hunt. They get no benefit from that. I don't get any benefit from the building inspectors unless I have them come to my house, right? So I'm stealing from my neighbors to use the building inspector. Instead, if I certify instead, and I could choose not to certify, but then who would want to buy the house? It would be economically implausible, or I would be harming myself by not buying that certification. And companies would compete to have the most stringent standards. So you have a free market solution where everything gets better and better and better, or you can have the government solution where everything gets worse and worse.
Sure, but all I'm saying is that you already have home inspectors. When you do new builds, you should have a home inspector out there. I think when they pour foundation or after the drywall goes up and before they finish, house. So I'm just saying that something like that
Yeah,
already
but
exists.
they might work for the builder.
They're private. Home inspectors are private. They're private
Right,
companies.
but you and I both know that home inspectors their liability is currently limited to whatever you paid for the inspection. So, if there's
Mhm.
if there's lead
But
inside
they're
in the paint,
a separate set of eyes. I mean, they don't work for the builder. They don't work for the homeowner. They're just a second set of eyes who are held to code. I mean, they're going to go through and look and make sure things are code, the wiring's done, the plumbing's
if
correct.
they're good.
I mean, if you're a licensed home inspector, I mean, I'll that.
But again,
I think it's a
license is issued by the state. So,
if they
so
have questions about the quality of their home and they don't work for the government.
So I'm just going to step
they're
in here real
I'm going to
quick.
break in here. I'm going to break in here real
Yeah.
quick because we're getting a little long in the tooth, and I want to give Elizabeth the last word. But we do have home inspectors, and we have insurance, we have architects, we have engineers, we have attorneys. So when all this goes bad, you have a private way to take care of this. You know what? Some of these building inspectors make $30,000 a year. That's what they're actually hired in at. I don't know if I want a person that is not qualified, because you're not going to get a qualified person for that. So Ed, I'm going to give you a second here. Then we're going to get Elizabeth back in, because she's just been sort of riding in this bus here while we talk about a few things. I'm going to give her the last word. Then we're going to go to the conspiracy theory. So Ed, go ahead.
Two really quick things from the construction end of it. I would say we know who inspectors to call. So just right there. The other part of it, and this goes back to Elizabeth, I would say that from what Tiffany was talking about, the outside investors, that wasn't a bug. That was actually a feature in the system. They were looking for those outside investors, especially here. And so when we talk about, obviously, Elizabeth, the situation you're working with isn't in St. Joseph County, but I can tell you here in St. Joseph County, those outside investors get a lot more, let's say, leniency than if you were to work here, because they're trying to attract that outside investment. And so I just wanted to add that and turn it over to you guys.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up the serious part of our show here. So I'm going to give Elizabeth the last word to plug anything she wants. And I think my wife wants to get one of those t-shirts you have. So, because she's living large with me with the, between all these departments, zoning and planning and all that. So Elizabeth, go ahead, have the last word.
Sure. So basically this boils down to, our rights as citizens: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is property. And we've gotten to a point in our government that it's become too authoritarian to allow for compassion, too authoritarian for, to allow accountability, and too authoritarian to allow community. So I echo Lucy's sentiments that we need this, we need accountability, we need oversight, we need to scale back, especially when it comes to ordinances. I heard today that the Libertarian Party of Vanderbilt County just created a committee to scale back those unnecessary, unneeded ordinances. This is what we need. We need more citizens stepping up into those positions to hold our local officials accountable. And this happens in every city, in every town, in every state in this nation. Right now, I'm currently fighting another property rights fight in Russell, Kentucky, where a convalescent home of 25 wonderful individuals, special in their own ways, maybe, but where they're being forced out of their home through eminent domain to turn their home into a parking lot. And this is small town shit. I'm sorry. It's BS. And it happens everywhere. So I want you guys to be aware of that, and your listeners to know that this isn't an isolated case. This happens every day, everywhere. And so we need to scale back, and we need to and protect our rights. So, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show. I'll do a shout out real quick. I really want to thank my party, the LPIN, and Evan McMahon, our chair. He's been really supportive. The Libertarian Party of Marshall County for stepping up. Their new affiliate. They're just thrown into it, and they're learning how to swim, and they're doing it quickly. And So Ty Shiley's doing a great job. James Steniak, who is the nominee for the U.S. Senate, he came and he's been very supportive in this battle. And also Kurt Knisely for showing up and in support. I really appreciate it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm going to switch up the format here. Oh yeah, there you go. We're all on equal playing fields here. But Elizabeth, we thank you for coming in. And it's been a little trying tonight with the internet being about as wonky as it could get. But we do appreciate you coming on tonight and talking about that, especially on short notice. And I think you told me earlier, this is like the second or third podcast you've been on before, and you seem like a professional. So, that's great. And Lucy, thanks for getting her on short notice. And Ed and Tiffany, as usual, you bring some good questions. But I got a little bad news for our audience. My little, the little segue into the tinfoil hat, I accidentally deleted it and I can't find the video. So guess what? You get the t-shirt, the t-shirt video instead while we get our tinfoil hats on. And then we'll come back on the other side and we will have our conspiracy theory moment. So here you go. Enjoy this commercial. And hey, if you do want a t-shirt, you can at mouthwashtalkshow@gmail.com. You can send it there. If you want a t-shirt, we'll get it out to you. And I know the panel, I got to get you yours too. I'm really being lazy on that. So here's the t-shirt commercial. I'm just going to rub it in a little bit. So there you go. And get your tinfoil hats on.
I'll call this.
Hey everybody, we got new t-shirts. Look at this. Check it out. It's good. We got blue and then we got yeller. And we got this here smiley face on the back side of it. So hey, $20 covers shipping and handling. So get on it. Let's get your t-shirt ordered today.
All right. So I don't know, Elizabeth, do you have a conspiracy theory? I mean, you are in the Libertarian Party, but that's okay. I know that we will have some other ones. So we're gonna start with Tiffany tonight. So Tiffany, what I know you don't really participate in this because Republicans don't have any conspiracy theories or anything, right? Ever.
No, nothing. I let my panelists handle the conspiracy because you guys are crazy enough. So, just getting my standard update. Went down to Nashville with Bigfoot, had a great time. Things are good. He still walks with a limp, but it's all good.
All right. Well, he's easier to track down. So, Ed, what do you have for us? Is it something sports related tonight, maybe?
I had a really great sports related one, but I got a new pet this week, and I think he ate it, and so I can't read it, and so I don't know. I think he's escaped runaway or something.
Was he in Caddyshack? Was that pet in Caddyshack? I just want to know. So,
yes. So my little friend here ate my homework.
All right. Yeah, Elizabeth is going to really think this conspiracy theory is something, isn't it? So Lucy, what do you have?
Well, of course, I'm going to come with conspiracy fact, as I always do. And just so you know, Dorn challenged me this evening. He said, "Are you ever going to run for public office again? Because these conspiracy facts that you do on John's show on Mouthwash will probably keep you from ever being elected." And I said, "Well, I think I can do a fine job of keeping myself from being elected just by being me. So I'm not too worried about the conspiracy facts." But the one that I'm coming with tonight is it's kind of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial as well as the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And that first guy that Kyle Rittenhouse did the world a favor by taking him out of existence, that had harmed 9 to 11-year-old boys, 5 of them in a very fantastically bad manner. And I have a 12-year-old at home, a 12-year-old son. So that really, really got to me. The media played up like those people were victims and heroes. And so, Adam Epstein didn't kill himself and Ghislaine Maxwell did not kill herself either, just putting that out there. So I see that the media has drummed up a lot of support for a pedophile and turned him into a victim and made him a hero. So I think what we're going to see coming out of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is, first of all, it's already been suppressed. The judge has already redacted the most damning, terrible, horrifying things that have been done by Ghislaine and by the very people that are contributors to both the Republican and the Democratic parties. The people that you see that are, Bill Gates, Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton. There's even rumors of, Tom Hanks and other people. I don't have any direct knowledge of that, but if you go and look at the list of the people that were on the Lolita Express, yeah, Trump was on there too. Yeah, supposedly Trump was. Yeah, so I don't directly remember Trump's name on there, so I don't want to throw Trump under the bus. I'm not a fan of him, in his orange fake tan for other reasons. But I think I'm just going to put out there right now that we are going to see suppressed and buried the very things that should be exposed and taken to light. If people really understood what Ghislaine Maxwell did and how they actually had like a multi-level marketing recruiting plan. So there were girls that were, beautiful, sweet young girls in poorer areas in Florida who were, taken into the gated communities and were giving foot rubs and back rubs, which then turned into more uncomfortable things for them. And when the girls got to be 18 or 19 years old, they were deemed too old. And so then they were started recruiting 14 and 15-year-old girls to go with them. And so it's just really quite horrifying what went on. And I'm just going to put out there's a conspiracy theory that we're not going to know everything that happened because the guilty will be protected and justice will not be served.
Well, Lucy, you made up for our dog eating the homework and the Bigfoot for sure on that one. That one was in depth. Like you might even thought about that for a minute, but I'll tell you what, that whole thing's a mess. Who knows what to believe? Pizzagate, all the way from Pizzagate to, Epstein Island and all that other garbage. But mine's going to be related to our topic tonight. And this is going to be these public officials that we have problems with. We're talking about school boards that don't listen to the people. We're talking about commissioners that don't listen to, people that have issues. We're going to talk about building inspectors. All of them, they're bots. They're not real people. They're bots. They cannot do something different because they're programmed to do what they do. So we can vote in as many people as we want. We're still going to get those bots. So they're all robots, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And Lucy, I probably won't be able to run for anything ever again either. So because I come up with some made up stuff. So yeah, my antennas are getting a little off there. So hey, that winds up another show in the books. And boy, I hope the internet gets better next week. I don't know if we even have a topic for next week, but I think we'll have one after this show is over tonight. So we want you to tune in to next week and we'll see what the topic is. And I'm sure it'll be a topic that'll, bring a lot of questions and make you wonder about what's up. So we appreciate y'all tuning in, and everybody give the sign out, and we'll catch you on the other side. And bye, little groundhog from Caddyshack and all that. So everybody, peace out. See you next week, 9 o'clock live, Facebook.